It is the Anfield Wrap. Neil Atkinson with Emilia, Bona, Phil Blundell and Jake Nolan. This podcast is entitled You've Had Your Fun. Coming up, we've got a clip from our Jurgen documentary supported by Erdinger. That is on the way as well. But we are going to start off with a very, very simple question. Are we looking forward to the return of domestic football? Emilia, Bona, no is a valid answer.
No, I'm absolutely buzzing, genuinely, and I didn't think I would be. It took me a while to warm up to the concept of a Winter World Cup for many reasons, but one of them being I was just quite tired and could have done with a little break, which feels weird because there wouldn't have been one under normal circumstances. But no, last night was great, really enjoyed watching it. I've enjoyed watching the kind of latter stages of that, and I'm very, very excited for football now after last night, so looking forward to it. Yeah.
Are you excited for football?
Very much so.
Yeah,
I'm really looking forward to it. I think.
Are you looking forward to going again?
Yeah, I'm looking forward to going again. I'm looking forward to getting into the routine, going to the pub, seeing people, before the match, after the match, whatever.
Very magnanimous of you, because I've met your friends.
That's a very fair point, yeah. Actually, I'm going to find some new ones. I've been working on it for the last month, and I don't think it's gone very well, but, you can try, can't you? I think I'm happy it starts off with a game where if you win, great. If you don't, you shrug your shoulders, move on and go. We've just lost to Manchester City. It's not that big of a deal. So it's a really good way to get back into it, and, yeah, very excited.
You looking forward to it?
No was my answer, Neil, until about 2 days ago, and then I mixed it between that final last night and seeing Bobby Clark zing one like Xabi Alonso to Darwin Núñez has wet my whistle.
It was. We're going to talk about that game a little bit, Jake, but I want to be clear about that game. That game wet my whistle too. I was very much I enjoyed watching most of the players who played for Liverpool an awful lot when they played AC Milan.
Yeah, definitely that, and I think I'm a bit of a weirdo. I'm getting quite excited about this League Cup and what he could be doing different. And with Bakasic, should we go on with that one? Yeah,
Bajcetic. There's no V in it, as Neil said for a while.
Sorry, Phil.
He's had a V in his name for a while.
Listen, he might play for us the next 10 years and become our greatest ever player, and I still won't get it right. But yeah, no, I'm really looking forward to it, and I think seeing where we are, coming back, and maybe playing that team that he did against AC Milan and coming back to it, that'd be good.
Excellent stuff. All right. In general, Phil, I just want to the one thing I want to take from it, the other thing I want to take from it is, in general, it's made me think a winter break may be no bad thing. I've always thought that anyway, the players could do with a bit of a rest, but I think it may prove impossible, not least because FIFA have now got Club World Cup plans, and I'm not actually against a Club World Cup in principle. I think it's not the worst idea in the world, but something has to give somewhere in the calendar. And similarly, I feel like a winter break wouldn't be the worst idea in the world. I'd probably err on the side of January ahead of in a normal season somewhere else, but I feel like something does have to give somewhere in the calendar, but a winter break / Club World Cup doesn't seem to me to be ridiculous.
No, I think that the problem is that you look at countries who do have this, like Germany. The Bundesliga isn't playing until the 20th of next month.
That's just insane.
Which is mad, isn't it?
So the
Bundesliga will have had over a 2-month gap.
No.
By the time we get back,
we all like a laugh.
Which is a bit mad. But what they do have in Germany is they have an 18-team league, and they only have one cup competition.
Yeah.
So when you think about it, that's a lot fewer football matches to fit in. I think they only play. They actually have a special name for the midweek fixtures in Germany because it's so rare that they play league games. It's called like the English week, where they play midweek football. So that says everything about English football, that the situation that they call it is the English week, and tells you that we probably play too much football and it needs sorting.
I really like the idea of Thomas Muller coming back after Christmas with a belly on him. Like Christmas belly on sort out. Yeah, it's absolutely fantastic. I've never known that before.
That is such a long break. It is absolutely ridiculous that they do that, Emilia. Do you feel as though I just want sort of an immediate, again, emotional reaction to the idea of a Club World Cup? I'm quite relaxed about the idea of a Club World Cup. I understand why conservative elements go, oh my god, and I completely get the idea of where's it going to fit in with the calendar. But if you could sort the calendar bit out, I'd just go, that could work. That would be a laugh.
As a concept, I very much enjoy it, much in the same way as I'd quite like to watch a Jurassic Park film where nothing goes wrong and we just get to see them all knocking about the park, or an entire Harry Potter film where it's just their term at Hogwarts. Do you know what I mean? Where I kind of like the novelty of going, oh, let's just, it's a bit different to something usual, and getting to just watch that play out is quite nice, getting to see the different characters and whatnot. I like the novelty, but I think, the reality has to come into play that I don't really know how that then works with any sort of a break. I enjoyed having Christmas football that wasn't Premier League games when we did have it, and it all felt kind of special and Christmassy, a bit like this World Cup did, that it was just novel and different, which is nice, but that's not enough reason to run people until their legs fall off.
It's not enough reason to run people until the legs fall off, and the legs may well fall off for these footballers at some point, and that's what I want to talk about, really, Jake. There's only really Konate who gets doing a post-World Cup assessment of the squad. There's only really Konate who gets the final weekend. So everyone else you think will be back and available by Villa. do you feel even as though Konate's had the injury, I think he'll get the same week holiday the manager's offered everyone, but I sort of see him just coming pretty much straight back in, not least because whenever he played during this World Cup, he looked the absolute business.
Yeah, he's looked in great form, hasn't he? And I think he was a little bit unlucky not to start yesterday, to be honest with you, but done well when he come on, not least playing centre forward for 5 minutes. That was good. No, I think him and the rest of the lads will definitely be back in for Villa, and for me, the World Cup has only really been a positive in terms of, one, the other lads have got to have their Dubai holiday pre-season thing that Klopp loves. No doubt there would have been loads of kind of TED Talks things going on. And also the lads in the World Cup look, in the main, like they've managed to stay away from injuries and also look like they're in decent form.
And that's all fair, Phil, all the way through there. I think the one or two of them might need a little bit of managing. I think that there's got to be a general concern around how much football Virgil van Dijk's played so far this season, as an example. I don't think he'll be too rattled by the fact that he misses the penalty. Could be wrong, he's human, even though he doesn't always look it. For me, the biggest issue's been just the recurrence or the deepening of the Diaz injury. Everything else has felt as though it couldn't have gone that much better for Liverpool in terms of the time players played, with the possible exception it might have been nice for Trent Alexander-Arnold to have at least played one game of football.
Yeah, it was a bit weird how England managed to go out the tournament having made 4 substitutions and leaving Kyle Walker on, who's not offering a huge amount going forward. It just felt like they were that concerned about Mbappe they didn't throw Trent on it. It was just very odd that you would, they had that free kick with 2 minutes to go, didn't they? And you would want Trent Alexander-Arnold on that, and that's to our benefit that they haven't done this.
Or James Ward-Prowse.
One of the three of them, and it ended up with Rashford, who doesn't take many free kicks, right? He scored one, but this has worked to our benefit. A lot of the World Cup has worked to our benefit. I think there's other things. The World Cup's really intense. Well, half the players at the World Cup were only involved in 3 games.
Yeah.
And then of the remaining half, they were only involved in 4. And most of our players were home, Bar Konate were home after the quarterfinals, which was 5 games. It's 5 games since, the 12th of November when we played Southampton. It's not actually that much. And then you work out that Henderson doesn't start the first 2 games. Yeah. Trent plays about 25 minutes against Wales. Konate's in and out, obviously stays till the end, but he's not massively there. There's only really Van Dijk who played serious football. Alisson did, but he doesn't really count. He's a goalkeeper, and it's not.
They're not real footballers, Phil.
They're not. Even they would admit it. Even they admit that they're not real footballers. But what it's done is it's freshens everyone up. I'm glad Andy can't see me. I
haven't got the blind date screen. I'm going to watch his eyes burn into my soul.
I wonder if we can. Will the YouTube catch him later for me to watch this back? But yeah, what it's done is it has effectively for us been like a pre-season break, really, and we've only had one footballer who's really been involved. Everybody, some of them have been on holiday, they've been freshened up. There was on the Diaz thing was a blow, but I think I saw some reasonably good news on Jota that said he'd be January as opposed to February/March, which is what they initially thought. I think I saw that the other day, which is
he's training, isn't he? He's gone to Dubai to train with them.
He's doing bits, and we've only got 5 league games before the end of January or something like that, which sounds absurd.
Well, after we play Brentford, we only have 2 more league games in the month of January.
It's a weird fixture.
Unless something gets dropped in, which is possible.
It is. I don't really understand why they haven't announced the Wolves game for when the cup replayers.
Yeah.
Because it's really easy to cancel, and ultimately, if it's a draw, Liverpool are playing Wolves that night anyway.
Yeah, it's just in a different location.
It's just very easy to sort out. That makes no sense to me, and the logic involved that these people are doing, it's not hard.
It's not odd. We'll come back onto that, Phil, because I love a British schedule and chat, and that is on its way. So I don't want to talk about the emotional aspect. I feel a bit like the players. No Liverpool players won the World Cup this time out, Emilia, so you'd think there could be an emotional knock. As I said before, I feel as though Trent barely features, so I'm sure he would like to have featured more, and that could give him a bit of a blow, I suppose, in a sense, but I don't quite see that because I think he goes knowing that that's the case. Henderson plays, he's involved in England and is substituted in the game where they go out, but you feel as though he's sort of dodged the bulk of that emotional blow. It helps they went out to France. Again, Konate doesn't really get on the final. When he does, he's acquitted himself well. A lot of World Cups in his future. I feel like, as I say, it's only really Van Dijk who may feel like there's been a loss of something, and that's fair. And I think that we saw the emotional toll it took on Mo Salah last season. I think with the African Cup of Nations. Do you think that there's a chance there's an emotional toll on Van Dijk?
I don't think there's anything that's comparable to that. Because I think on Salah you saw how
losing
heavy
the final
that
on penalties.
Yeah, no, completely. And I think the devastation of that and getting so close and also believing it was so possible. Do you know what I mean? I think there's a different emotional blow to each of them. Trent is actually the one I'm the most worried about, but even then, it's not really that significant a worry. More just that the England situation so obviously kettles his head and has done for a really long time. And the whole kind of will they, won't they, will he, won't he get to go in and then kind of just being a bit of a spare part, apart from, as you say, a few minutes against Wales, it is a bit of a knock. And when you see him in the videos when he's out there, other than like having a lovely time going for tea with Jude Bellingham, he just looks quite sad and like he doesn't really know why he's there, and probably no one really understood why he was there. So I think, but also he's a young lad and we all know that he's boss, and as soon as he's back on the pitch at Anfield, like anything kind of surrounding that just goes away. Konate, yeah, it's gutting for him, but you can walk away from it with his head held high. Every single contribution that he makes to it is absolutely fantastic, and there's nothing more that he could have done. And Van Dijk, yeah, I suppose, but I just don't think it's anywhere near comparable to like that level of devastation and that like emotional weight that Salah has after the African Cup of Nations. Yeah, broadly speaking, no.
It's important that though, isn't it, Jake? I think that there will be some players who will feel, done in at the back end of this. I think the fact that the tournament ends with Argentina winning and Messi winning against a French team in the final, I think everyone feels, they are the two best teams in the competition. I think there'll be fewer hard luck stories. I think that, I wouldn't necessarily want to be knocking around with Kylian Mbappe, but even he scores a hat-trick in a World Cup final. Even he gets to go, well, I couldn't have done much more. He doesn't miss his penalty either, for God's sake. I sort of, do I think it would be important in general for football that no one's really coming away emotionally done in, because I think that would be the worst possible. It doesn't feel as though there's been any significant injuries. Phil might correct me if I'm wrong, through the tournament that's going to kibosh someone's domestic season, and it doesn't feel as though any players are really going to have been done in by the whole thing either, and that is a positive.
No, I think away from the obvious, it's been a largely positive.
The Belgians should be fucking miserable.
Yeah.
I want De Bruyne broken. Now that I've thought about this,
he looked miserable while the football was going on. So maybe him leaving there was like a weight off his shoulders.
No, that's my worry.
I can't be arsed with these dickheads, so I'm going to go and play with my Manchester City.
No, that's my worry. Phil, he's going to feel great about everything because he's not going to deal with that anymore. That's a real concern of mine now that I've said it out loud. Although the flip side would be absolutely brilliant. He needs to remember that could be his last chance. Go on. Yeah. Get a billboard outside his house.
Do you know what? I had a conversation yesterday during the game about Giroud, because Giroud comes off, doesn't he, after like 20 minutes, half an hour.
He'd love to come off as well, didn't he?
Yeah, well, he was absolutely fuming, wasn't he? And we had the conversation at our house, and it was like, you know what, that's probably his last World Cup final. And then I was actually like, no, it's not. He'll still be playing when he's 44, scoring 2 a game for France. Like, he could literally go on and be the difference between the real. But
still doing bits.
Exactly. No doubt playing for AC Milan or somebody. But no, it's been largely positive, hasn't it? And I think, I do feel for Van Dijk, I do think that's one to keep our eye on. But I think the fact that they lost to the eventual winners, they lost to Messi, he's got to have an extra week holiday. Although these things aren't bad for Liverpool.
We're not going to see. So we're going to go through what's on the horizon, Phil. City away feels, as you said before, it feels almost a bit like a final pre-season Community Shield game. I gave you all a screenshot of their very oddly numbered lineup for the game that they had against Girona, which will be their last fixture.
I kept looking at that team and I was like, I'm sure they've got a number 7.
I know, it's drove me mad.
And it can't be him. And then I realised it's João Cancelo who wears number 7, but they just give the shirt to some kid.
Some kid, because you had to make up the numbers. And I think that in a funny way, listen, you don't want to lose any game, but this is a great game to win or lose, if you sort of see what I mean. I think it almost just couldn't have gone any better for Liverpool. The only thing I'd like is for it to be in Anfield. Yeah,
I prefer it at Anfield. I mean, from a personal point of view, it's more fun that it's in Manchester because we get a nice day out. But, if we could swap it round, we'd also have fun anyway. But it's by the way.
What are you doing, Christmas market?
Oh, absolutely. I went on a recce last week.
Overrated.
They're not very good.
Overrated. I think the good thing about the Christmas market in Manchester is you go for the Christmas market for an hour and then you get to go to many excellent Mancunian pubs.
This is also true.
That's my Christmas market in Manchester thing.
100%. It's a game where I'd happily play Manchester City in the 3rd or 4th round of every cup every single season, because if you win, you have a real opportunity to win the tournament. If you lose, you can go, we lost to Manchester City, we move on, we focus on other things. There's nothing I find worse, like getting Manchester City in the semi-final last season to then be rewarded with Chelsea drove me around the bend, to be perfectly honest, because you play 4 games and then all of a sudden they go, it's Manchester City. I was like, can I not just do it earlier, get it out the way? Especially in this circumstance, because the lack of extra time is a good thing as well, which we obviously got rid of a couple of years ago. It gives us a real opportunity to pick a team. I do wonder what happens with the lads who got to the sort of quarterfinals when they come back in. Because I don't know whether they've been back in training, so you're probably thinking that they're not going to be involved. But it means that everybody who has been in Dubai is probably involved. You can pick a broadly quite a strong side that's still missing 5 or 6 players.
But I think he won't like his Thursday, Monday, is what I think in these circumstances. I don't, because he can make 5 subs, but Thursday, Monday, I really wish this game. The other thing I wish about this game was it was Tuesday or Wednesday, because then I think he could go very strong and sort of commit to the idea that there's enough time to rest and recuperate in the gap.
It's one of them Monday, Friday, though, Neil.
I know, it's one of them though, Phil, when I go through it all, Thursday, Monday, Friday.
That's what I meant.
But it's one of them when I go through it all, I want him to sort of pick a really strong team and then sub everyone, and he only gets 5. If you sort of there's a part of me going, well, he could do this, and he could give Trent half an hour, and then he could start with Robertson and then bring Shimikas on. That's great, okay, I'm into that. He could give Nat Phillips a bit of a run out for either of the centre halves. I'm absolutely in favour of him doing something in midfield. I don't want him to give Salah 90. I don't want him to give Firmino, and all of a sudden I'm like, I'm going to run out of subs.
So I know what you're saying, but I think a lot of them do need 90. Like, you mentioned Nat Phillips for either Gomez or Mata. That's the waste of a stub for me, because those 2 footballers need 90 minutes in them, particularly Matip, who hasn't started the game since. I think he could. Does Konate come on for him at Arsenal? I think that's when he got injured, wasn't it? And so he hasn't played football for a while. He needs the minutes. A lot of these footballers haven't played proper games of football since the 12th of November, which is a long, long time. And that's why I'm really happy that we got through to this stage and that we're able to do it, because it sort of puts us in a really good way for Villa on Boxing Day. It's a great fixture to have, I think, to be honest.
Go on.
No, I disagree that it's a great game to win or lose, and I'd be more. I know, like, shrugging your shoulders is only a slight departure from it's a great game to lose, but I think that if beating City in and of itself is a great thing to do, but I think if we beat them in this and then you progress in this competition, it is in no way compromising to the Premier League campaign at all, because of the way that the next fixture in it falls. It's sandwiched between like a league game that you'd be less worried about and then an FA Cup fixture. Yeah. I think I'm looking at Phil to confirm that. I think. Sorry, go on.
Sorry, why not just saying when talking about losing, it's sort of you can have no regrets about losing.
Oh, no, you see it more as like a Community Shield, where you go, oh well, but I don't think that we go out of it and go, amazing, fewer fixtures to play now. I think because the next fixtures, they fall at as favourable a time as you could ask for in the Premier League campaign and in relation to the FA Cup, which you're kind of less bothered about, arguably. But I think that you can kind of go, well, if you go out of it, but I don't think you're going, amazing, we've got fewer fixtures now.
No, I would agree with that completely.
Well, the FA Cup less bothered about, I think, Jake, what that sort of flits into, I think, is that if they do go through against City, the fixture falls, as Emilia says, between the quarter-final will be the 10th or the 11th, which is between Wolves in the Cup and Brighton in the league, and then the semi-final, if they get there, the first leg is between Chelsea and then the 4th round of the Cup. The second semi-final is between the 4th round of the Cup and Wolves away. My point here is that it becomes, you very much decide you'll focus on the League Cup ahead of the FA Cup for this season. And if you get through the FA Cup, great, but that I think becomes the priority. If you get through this one against City, you're in a quarter-final, the idea of a domestic cup, what you get to do is decide, well, now we'll just drop the FA Cup down our list of priorities, and if we do just continually progress through the competition, amazing, but that's where your rotation works.
Okay, so I'm asking this because I know for a fact it'll be on your Google Calendar. Is it still 2 legs in the League Cup?
The semi-final is annoyingly, yes.
Yes, so I think that's a big thing here. But what I will say is, almost as important of the scheduling that you've just kind of mapped out there, which is hugely important. We want to beat Man City. If we want to beat Man City, don't think that Jurgen Klopp's ego is not twitching now, where he's thinking, I want to beat this fella.
Well, actually, they haven't beaten us now in so many games that you want to keep that record up.
So we've got a really good record against them recently, actually, amazingly. I mean, there's games we've lost, like we lose there's the 4-1 at Anfield, when I think you can mitigate the fact that we started with Jordan Henderson and Fabinho at centre-back and throw it out the window and ignore it. They beat us after we've won the league. Again, you can throw that out the window, forget about it. They haven't beaten us in what I would class as a meaningful game of football with 2 teams going toe to toe since I think it's nearly 4 years now. The 18-19 where Leroy Sané scores. I think that's the last game of football where they meaningfully beat us. I might have forgotten something, but I think it is.
I don't think it is. Go on.
I'm telling you now, if we win and it's a good game on Thursday, he's straight over to the crowd giving it the fist bumps and having a bottle of Erdinger after it.
Excellent stuff, Jake. More of that sort of thing. Excellent stuff. Well, circle back around and we'll end this for you to pick a team for City between the three of you, what you think he'll do. Jake, the next thing is there's a huge opportunity over the Christmas period in these league games. I was just having a little look, prepping for this and just in general because I spend too much time looking at the league table. And firstly, the nature of being in a battle for top 4 is that points get dropped a lot. I'm not about to say contradict that, but it doesn't. Part of why Newcastle have just sort of catapulted themselves into third is all of a sudden they've won 5 of the last 6. They've won the last 5, full stop, but 5 of the last 6. And it's easy to get on the march, is what I think about top four for us. We're a side who've got record, we've got form for going on runs. And that's why I'm looking at, these are huge opportunities over the Christmas period, they really are. That league table will look very, very different if Liverpool just win the 3 games over Christmas before you even extend that run. And that's why I want them in the best possible shape for that Villa away game, because if they start there, get rolling, then I think they'll be difficult to stop, and the table will look very, very different by the end of February.
Yeah, I skipped into the office this morning off the back of the game yesterday and getting in early and whatnot, and then I looked at the league table and thought, fuck, we're 8 points off 4th here, and didn't feel too good about it. But then I remembered that in previous seasons we've been 11 points off top, we've been 22 points on, and I thought, you know what, and actually I've always felt, it kind of taught myself into the positives. I've always felt that our season starts after this World Cup, for many reasons. I think we're a team that relies on the quality we've got in the squad being slightly smaller. We're a team that relies on pre-season, and Klopp's managed to do his proper pre-season now, and also what we've just spoke about with the World Cup. Everybody largely coming out positive. We've lost Diaz, but Nunes has looked good there, so we've got a way to play without him. So for all those reasons, as far as I'm concerned, we go and win every single game like it's a cup final now, and we take that mentality at the back end of last season and we put that into this season.
It's Emilia, as I say, the Newcastle point I think is very, very appropriate for this. It just doesn't take very much. Everyone plays everyone else. When they've got sort of 5, 6, 7 teams all going for this sort of thing, all in together, it's not to say that you get easy games, and far from it. Ultimately the 3rd best player on the pitch of the World Cup final plays for Brighton. The 4th best player in the World Cup pitch, the World Cup outfield player, perhaps the 3rd best player full stop plays in goal for Aston Villa. It's worth bearing that in mind, that that's what we're coming up against in these games. You're not coming up against mugs in any of them anymore, and you've got to accept that. But it does feel like Liverpool need to see this little run after that City game as an opportunity to put some points on the board.
Yeah, completely. And saying that isn't like a cockiness of there's no guaranteed wins and no easy fixtures out of those. There's one that you can go into with kind of more confidence than others. But I think that there's a lot to be said for knowing what the goal is and it being really clear at this point. Because I think at the start of the season, as you feel the idea of it being a Premier League winning campaign slipping away, it becomes really difficult to just keep pushing on, just keep kicking on, just keep aiming for this, as you can feel it slip in further and further every single time. And I think now we know in the Premier League, your sole aim is to get top 4. And know that there's going to be a bit of a scrabble around that, and that it's kind of anyone's for the taking if you go into it with that fire in your belly, if you go into it knowing you've got to win those 3 first fixtures back. I think having a very clear goal, it isn't to be underestimated, and we know what we're going for now, and they need to come back after this reset and see it as a reset, starting afresh. Like you said, the season just starts again now.
It starts again now. We also haven't played as because it's felt like it's the halfway point for a variety of reasons, not least that normally Boxing Day feels like the halfway point of football. It isn't. There's still a lot of season left to play. The whole of the FA Cup, obviously much of the League Cup, and it's only for Liverpool being 14 league games so far. So that is the bulk of the season, is the other side. For me, the really interesting little bit is we're not quite sure how everyone else, we've got a level of optimism about ourselves, how everyone else comes out to this. Villa have played 4 friendlies, 4. I was amazed. And they've got an interesting squad. It's a new manager in there. Leicester have only played 1. Manchester City have only played 1. We played 2. It's almost like everyone's trying to work this out for the first time. Now, it isn't the first time. Klopp's done winter breaks before. Unai Emery has done winter breaks before. Guardiola's done, winter breaks before. Let's be clear about that little bit, that it isn't quite the first time, but it's the first time in this context. And I think that it is one of the most mysterious aspects as to how you sort of tackle all of this is what you've done with your players in this process.
Yeah, I think that the interesting thing with Villa is obviously the new manager comes in very close to the break, and they've obviously brought him in at that time. So he's got the World Cup to analyse the squad, and then they've got 4 friendlies to get his ideas into play. I think it's quite interesting. I've just looked at their squad there, and I think they only had 3 players at the World Cup, and one of them was obviously Martinez, who's the goalkeeper, who, it's not massively, it's not vital.
And also may not feature on Boxing Day now.
May not feature on Boxing Day, but it's also not vital to the general structure of the team in a way that you can't just, if your central midfielder wasn't there, you can't replace him quite as easily in a training session as you can the goalkeeper. I think one was Bednarek, who was not a first choice centre back anyway, and the other one's Den Donker, who I don't think is a first choice midfielder either. So they've basically had a month to get their ideas into play. It's an opportunity that I don't think many Premier League teams will have had. So I think there's probably some with 6 or 7 like we have. And there's some, obviously, Man City have had about 15 or so.
Yeah.
But we've had 7, and they're important players at that. They've had 3, not particularly important. So they should be in a position where like it's not the same for everyone. Is basically what I'm saying. So there's just not a right way and a wrong way. I don't think.
So do you think that's our hardest game of the 3 that are coming?
Yeah,
I think it is. I think it's our hardest game of the 4 that are coming if you include the City
I
one.
would agree with that completely. It's the one where I would enjoy the win most. I think in terms of
any win.
Winning that first league game back would feel like we'll probably gain points on someone at some point. We could also do with Ivan Toney getting suspended before we play Brentford, which is possible. I don't know. Be quite helpful if he could play against Tottenham on Boxing Day, score a hat-trick, and then get suspended on the 27th.
Do you reckon the FA work between Christmas and New Year?
Yes, they do, because they sent out the Luis Suarez report on New Year's Eve.
There we are. Excellent stuff. Well
really
done, Phil.
Great knowledge, that.
Great knowledge indeed. Good to know that they're doing the hours in amongst all of that. It's, as I say, they're going to be... Emilia, the other thing that on this we need to remember is that Liverpool won 8-10 before the World Cup. It's a funny one, that, because feelings and reality are in opposition on it massively. If you've got to include penalties versus Derby, don't get me wrong, but Liverpool were victorious in 8 out of 10 games. It's striking. I'll say again, it didn't quite feel like that as it was happening.
No, but I think it's one of the reasons that, first of all, I'm excited for football to be back properly, and also why I'm feeling overwhelmingly quite positive about it for us, because if we'd gone into the World Cup the way that things were feeling a couple of weeks before, I would have felt quite desperate. Whereas going into it, you kind of thought, okay, things are looking up, things are improving. There's like a kind of a shimmer of light in this, and a hope and signs that things are getting better, or at least back on track. So I think that there's a lot of positives taken from that. As you say, it didn't feel like it. I think part of that is because of that awareness that we're not winning the league, we're not even kind of challenging for it at all, but we can go back knowing that we were in a much better position as we were going into the World Cup than we were kind of earlier on in the season.
The other reason why I didn't feel like it, Jake, was the nature, both in terms of performance, but also nature of opposition for the defeats. It's the first Anfield League defeat in front of a crowd in God knows how long, the one against Leeds United. The Nottingham Forest game was absolutely turgid. The two of them come very, very close together. They felt like actual body blows, those two. They really did. And that's one of the reasons why, you can say it's 8-10 in all comps, but that also includes the fact that in the end, Liverpool win 5 of the 6 Champions League group games, if you see what I mean. There's the Derby EFL Cup game in there as well. They did just feel like such abject performances, such low ebbs, that they skew everything else.
Yeah, it's an interesting one, isn't it? I mean, when effectively we've gone the past 3 or 4 seasons winning near enough every game apart from other top sides, and they felt like body blows, 6-pointers almost at times. And that's because that's league winning form. We're now in a form that is upper Europa League, bottom Champions League, and that's exactly where we are. The table doesn't lie. What I will say though on the back of those results is, I think we were very much sleepwalking into a way of, this is how we want to play. This is how we're trying to change. But ultimately, I think on the back of those results, it was like, right, we're back to type here, and we found a way to win and a way to look good. And I'm quite excited about that. I don't think there was anything wrong with it. I still had the same clothes as I did 5 years ago. You still look good, Neil. You know what I mean? It's not broke, don't fix it.
I think there's a strong element of that, Phil. It's the thing I'm sort of interested to see what they persevere with. It looked very similar to... these are all small tweaks. I think it's worth saying they were smallish tweaks anyway, going in one direction. They look like there've been smallish tweaks coming back from that direction. You've seen the same thing. I think Liverpool being robust is, I think, certainly in this run, certainly dealing with this Aston Villa game, I think Liverpool being robust, getting back to being difficult to beat, because I think if Liverpool are difficult to beat, there's enough quality in there to ensure that, for instance, if we're thinking about these 3 games, we'd love 9, we'd probably be all right with 7. If Liverpool are robust, I think they get at least 7.
Yeah, the thing with the early part of the season when we weren't winning and we were dropping stupid points, and it was just generally annoying, was that we weren't making it hard for teams to beat us. We were making it very easy for them to
beat us, score against us.
To score against us, I mean, look at like the first goal against Arsenal, for example, was a case in point, in that we lose the ball, they get it the wrong side of us. Okay, it's probably offside, but it's in the back of the net because we just get ourselves into a situation where we've given them a load of space to pass the ball into. And one of the things you'd hope they would have been working on is a sort of a bit of shape and a bit of structure that makes it really, really difficult for teams to sort of pass through us in the way that they were. Like Napoli, for example. Napoli away was basically them getting the ball and passing it through us for 60 minutes. And then they basically gave up because they didn't need to do anything. Because we were that easy to play against. The game was done after 60 minutes, which is not something you would associate with this Liverpool team. And that is what the manager has to have been doing. And I think it looked. I didn't watch the Milan game in full. I watched the Lyon game for the 35 minutes that really mattered before Elliot went off, and everyone decided that they were not going to really bother anymore. And it looked a bit like that. The intensity was there, the aggression was there. We made it really difficult for Lyon to do anything whatsoever. All right, they beat us in the end, but that was mainly because of a defensive mix-up, and then we brought on players who I couldn't even spell the names, to be honest. Like, I can't even remember. I wouldn't know who they are. But if one of them was sat over there in the corner, I would have no idea. That's the sort of level we played the second half at. And but the start of both games, when it was the starting 11, it looked really promising. And it looked a style of football that made you think, right, this is us positioned very well, very strongly to go and finish the season.
What matters, though, the flip side of the Emilia, if you're going for top 4, everyone drops points, is that the points have to go somewhere. So when they do play each other, someone is going to win from time to time. You can say you'd like a draw, but don't get me wrong, someone is going to win from time to time. And that is why, when we're not playing those sides, I think it is very, very important that we, 7 to me just feels like a bit of a minimum. When I look ahead now at those 3, 7 just feels like that's your minimum, lads. That doesn't give you much room for manoeuvre, I hasten to add.
No, yeah, 7 is the bare minimum that you'll take, and 9 would be absolutely delightful. How confident are you of 9? I'm interested, because I know you said 7's the minimum when you were like planning the show, but how confident are you that 9 is possible?
I think it's all in that Villa game. I think genuinely, I think that Villa game could be a dog. It's worth saying that it's a 5:30. It's in Birmingham. They'll have all had a good Christmas. First time they've seen them in a while. New manager. They'll want Villa Park to be as much of a cauldron as it can be. It's always a good end. So I think Liverpool have got to put a real performance in at Villa Park. And there's no hiding places. I think if they get the 3 points at Villa, then I think they kick on from there, and I think they'll be fine in the other 2, even allowing for the fact that Brentford will try and do what they did last season. We're inoculated from it, I think, a bit now. There's not going to be a surprise whatever they try. I think Canate starts at Brentford in most circumstances, and I think Liverpool will be fine. So, but I've got a level of confidence. And
but
basically,
it's all conditional on that first.
It's almost the first 45 minutes.
Yeah.
As mad as that is, I'm worried about the first 45 minutes of Villa. I think if Liverpool get the other side of that in one piece, then I think they're very well positioned to get 9 points.
I think that, especially in this period where it kind of gets into the time of the year where no one knows what day of the week it is or kind of what day it is that normally you're watching Liverpool games to support Liverpool, you're watching City games to just be supporting whoever's playing against City, and then Everton games for the same reason. But God, there's going to be a lot of football to have to watch to just try and do the maths during this period, isn't there? To just go, right, so that
a lot of results to check. How Spurs got on. Who wants to care about how Spurs have got on?
I personally
why have
do
Liverpool
not
done this to us, Emilia?
I'm going to ask Electrics to set up, Neil. I don't want to be doing it.
The Newcastle one's the one that's pissing me off.
Oh, why do I have to care about Newcastle's
results?
results?
Business. Bring back Freddie Shepherd.
Yeah, why do I have to care about Newcastle's results? It's one more. It's like another bit of work.
Yeah, exactly. None of our business.
None of our business at all. I don't have to worry about it. All right, let's work through where we find ourselves then, Phil. Lost Diaz. Jota, as you say, maybe closer than we'd have thought, but he is still out. Gordon remains out in terms of an attacking sense. It feels like Chamberlain will be viewed from an attacking point of view, at least in the short term, more often than not. So Chamberlain thrown back in left hand side, plays both games in the front 3 periods, and very much is left hand side for the one against Milan. I thought he did well under the circumstances. Mello and Jones Jones, God knows if text in.
I try and do a lot of decoding of things by looking at his missus's Instagram.
Oh, go on.
A lot of nice holidays, and I do a lot of just trying to see if it's his hand that's like in other photos, just to see what he's up to, basically. Like,
and have you got anything for me?
Absolutely nothing at all. No.
The criminology of the Curtis Jones missus's
I'm
Insta.
fascinated by what you're finding out about Curtis Jones' injuries by if you can see his hand.
Yeah. Just going, he looks well there. They're having sushi. You wouldn't have that if you had a dicky tummy, would you? I don't know why. I'm just looking at everything they're doing and going, I wouldn't want to be getting a transatlantic flight.
What I would say is you're possibly the most informed person about what Curtis Jones is actually up to at the moment, so that's fair enough.
Where is he? Who knows?
Well, there appears to be more questions than answers. But anyway, Mello as well may or may not be on his way back. But, I literally have to check he's real, to be honest with you, not some sort of complex.
He was on that photo of them all in the desert, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was, he was indeed. He was the one I was hugely confused by for an extended period. Phil, Ramsey, it feels like he might well be being managed. I think everyone's back, bar whatever holiday Ibu Konate gets himself through. This is now where Liverpool are. This is the. I think it looks to me like these are the lads who are taking us forward until, let's say, the end of January with a question mark around Curtis Jones. That's the way in which it feels from a Liverpool point of view now. and that's pretty good, Nick. I'd just like there to be one more forward.
Yeah, the same. So that the forward is the thing. I mean, you do wonder if Ben Doak might be a bit of a wild card, but he's also 17 years of age. So the idea that you can sort of go, oh, it's fine, he can play, and he looks absolutely incredible.
But also he plays where Salah plays. I'm not concerned about if he was left hand side. I'd be very committed to fucking start him.
I completely agree. But it's the type of thing where maybe you can go, well, we've got Wolves in the third round of the FA Cup.
He's definitely starting that.
Start him and just see what happens. And it might be that you can then just play Salah through the middle. I don't particularly like Salah through the middle, but when you've got basically three people for three positions, which is effectively what we've got. If there's an option of a fourth, you can possibly do something a little bit different. I mean, there might be games where we see a front two. You don't know if that's one of the things they've been working on as well, where they sort of, they might have worked on like a diamond style midfield that they can basically just go, right, this means we can play two forwards. We can work it out. We don't have to do it much, but you might do it. It might be something you do for Brighton away or something which we've got. I think that's the fourth league game, isn't it? That's the week after Wolves in the FA Cup, where they've looked at Brighton, they've gone, right, we can play this way against them.
Or at least do it for 60.
Yeah, exactly. There's one thing they have had is a month to work out ways, and ultimately the next sort of till the end of January is pretty much, I reckon, they know what team they're probably going to play in every game, injuries permitting. I reckon they've plotted it all the way through, and they know. Which means that they should be able to work this out. I mean, I would like one more attacker, as you say, but the players we've got are strong. I think Chamberlain will possibly do bits in the front three, and I'm perfectly fine by that. I think it was this time of year last year that he contributed quite a lot when the African nations went on the slide. I think he scores at Palace, he scores at home to Brentford, and they were two really important goals.
He scores game-breaking goals.
Exactly. They were important goals. It was better than him scoring the fourth goal in 6 games running.
Yeah.
Goals are important, obviously, but it was what he did was great. If he can do that again, that's something he can really add to this team. And we're in reasonable nick. I think I would obviously one more attacker, as you say, would be great, but it's circumstances just done us, really, hasn't it?
Yeah, just on the subject of having one more attacker, it was round about this time last season, wasn't it, where Divock and Minamino started taking to the fore, and in these competitions as well. So I think that's where we are light. It was interesting watching the match last night. Let's go back to the final for a second. For me, it was probably the best use of 5 subs that I've seen. He brings on 2 or 3 forwards, doesn't he? He absolutely completely changed the game, and I think that's the luxury Liverpool haven't had. And actually, we're playing a different game now where you can do that. It can become a little bit more basketball, it can become a little bit more American football. I think that's something we definitely need to be looking at.
So when people are talking about transfers, Jake, would you consider if they could find a way to bring in, say you've got to choose?
Get Divock.
Well, no, genuinely, would you choose, if you had to pick right now, if it was a short-termist move especially, would you rather got a midfielder or would you rather got an attacker?
It'd be an attacker, yeah, because I think that we've got to go all out top 4, and we're going to do that through having firepower, and the fitness is a big thing. Having low bodies in midfield, albeit absolutely frustrated living daylights out of me, it's nothing new, and we've got enough bodies to get through it by hook or by crook. But that is something that needs to be done in the summer, without a shadow of a doubt.
Bajcetic and Clark have both played well when they've had opportunities in this little run. Phil, would you go for a midfielder or an attacker?
I go attacker. I just think we've literally got 3 at the minute.
Yeah.
What sort?
We play 3. I would basically try and find someone who can play in all 3 positions. I think the best approach for me would probably be to sign Firmino's replacement in January and then move Firmino on in the summer.
That Alvarez for Argentina looks good. I wonder who he plays for.
So you would go for someone like that?
Yeah, I think we should seriously be, as I said, I think we should genuinely be looking at replacing Firmino in January and then say thanks a lot in the summer. It just feels the easiest way.
Midfielder or attacker?
An attacker. I think that the idea that Jota's situation isn't as bad as we kind of thought it might have been, but we need him much sooner than that if we are challenging for top 4. I mean, a lot needs to be done in the period before he may potentially be making a tentative return. Diaz being a lot worse than any of us thought it would be is a real blow. And I think my biggest concern is that going into these fixtures, like you said, they've had a month to work it out, but I don't know how it looks and I don't know how they work it out. And I know it's not my job to, it's theirs, but that concerns me that I just can't see a way that it works for those 3 fixtures that would make sense to me.
Okay, excellent stuff indeed. Come back around in a second or two and we'll be picking a team for Manchester City. But before then, we're going to run a trailer around our third episode of our Jurgen Klopp documentary, which is supported by Erdinger. Thank you very much to them all the way through for the support as it's wore on. The documentary, if you haven't seen part 1, it's available on YouTube. Part 2 is available through the Anfield Wrap app now. Part 3 should be out on Tuesday. It's literally being cut together and has been cut together over the weekend by Jordan, who's working ever so hard on it and doing a brilliant job. I saw a rough cut on Friday. It is the absolute business. It really is. Fascinating stuff about how Klopp builds teams and then the journey that he's taken them on. So here's a little bit of Klopp trailer from either episode 2 or 3. Might still be episode 2, to be honest with you, because they're literally still working on episode 3.
Jürgen was crying like a little child. I will never forget these tears.
1 year later in Braunschweig, we missed for 1 goal on the last day.
Because he's experienced these crushing defeats, he's incredibly good with dealing with defeats.
The progress was there, and it was clear to see that the club, the team, everybody personally was moving in the right direction.
We had tough periods, but you've just got to kind of ride them, keep working. I think there was enough signs that we were going in the right direction.
It made us realise that this is where we belong again. We're a European force again.
And we are back. As I say, that is supported by Erdinger. There's also the huge billboard in Liverpool city centre, outside Lime Street Station. If you get the opportunity to get a picture in front of that, and then you tag the Anfield Wrap in when you put that picture on any social media, you'll be entered into a draw to win a 3-litre signed Klopp Erdinger glass. Yes, it's in the office.
3 litres?
3 litres. I mean, I think you're not meant to drink out of it because you signed it. You're not going to whack it.
You're
not going to whack it in the dishwasher after, are you?
But ultimately, someone has made this glass with the idea of drinking out of it, presumably.
Yeah, 3 litres. It's like whenever you see them all hold them up after the matches and all that sort of stuff.
Well,
It's in the office. I've cradled
Do
it.
you think how warm it'd be when you get to the bottom?
That'd be my issue all the way through.
Warm and flat. I mean, a pint is arguably too much in that
Is it the one where they win the Bundesliga?
Yeah,
and then
yeah,
they always,
It's exactly that.
into
So
that, yeah.
Klopp
exciting, isn't
Klopp
it?
signed one of them. It's in the office if the three of you want to see it on the way out. You're more than welcome to do so, but do not take it. It is for the winner of this competition. And it is very, very kind of Erdinger. You also get some Erdinger beer with it, but don't use the beer in that glass. Get a separate Erdinger glass and go from there. All right then. Phil, pick me a team for Manchester City. Kelleher starting in goal.
Kelleher obviously starts, gets the League Cup, and that's his tournament. Are we talking what I think he'll pick or what I would pick?
Tell me what you think he'll pick and then tell me where you deviate.
So what I think he'll do is I think he'll do Milner right back, Robertson left back, Gomez Mata. I think he'll do Bajcetic, Thiago, Elliott, Nunes, Salah and Firmino. I personally would play Calvin Ramsey at right back and I would play Naby Keita instead of Bajcetic. But I think,
really?
Yeah, I think I would. I just think it'd be a bit of a laugh. Keita and Thiago as a midfield too, with Elliott in front of them against Manchester City. It's like basketball. It will end 4-4 and it'll be great fun.
So you're basically picking Keita for jokes, let's be clear.
Yeah, I just think he's also a good player.
He is a good player, yeah.
He's good at football. And the last time he played Manchester City in a cup match, he played very well. He was great.
I think there's not an argument to maybe give Keita 60 and maybe pick him ahead of Elliott and still let Bajcetic have a game.
Possibly, but at the same time, is Bajcetic going to have any chance of starting any of the rest of the next 3 league games? Probably not, whereas Keita probably is. You don't know how much. I know he didn't start either of the 2 friendlies, so you don't know how much he's got in his legs. So it might be a case of you do him for 45 and then bring him off. But I think getting an experienced international footballer who has showed he is competent ahead of what is, he's a very promising youngster, but he is ultimately still a youngster. I think he looks. It's very rare you can just look at a sort of 17, 18-year-old kid and go, he's got it, and I think he has it. But I just think this feels a bit like a not bad idea, just a bit unnecessary when you do have a footballer who is at a higher level at him now.
Do you disagree with Phil on this one, Jake?
It's slightly. I mean, if I'm picking a team that I would pick, Steven Gerrard plays centre mid and probably leaves out. So just on that notion, I think the AC Milan team is probably a good pointer to where we're going here. With the argument that maybe Milner goes back into midfield, if you see where if we can do something there with Ramsey or Trent, or we see where the other centre halves are. But does he do Phillips? Does he do Gomez right back? Something like that. I'd like to see Nunes start though. I don't think Nunes starts, does he? Oxlade-Chamberlain plays in the front three. But they would be the only changes for me. And I think going back into Klopp traditionally with the last pre-season game, Charity Shield normally gives you an inclination into what his team's going to be the next game, so I think it will be close to that.
What do you think in terms of Phil's opinions / Jurgen's realities?
I struggle with it, to be honest. How many games of football does Darwin Núñez play in the World Cup, and how much of a break has he already had?
He plays 3 games.
Right.
4.
No, they got in the groups.
Oh yeah, of course they do.
It felt like they didn't. It felt like they went out in a knockout, but he went out in the groups.
Brazil,
Just made a big impact, didn't he?
So he gets 3 games only. So he's only had, since the 3 games finished, which was about 2.5 weeks ago, he's only had the 20 minutes he gets against AC Milan.
Okay. Yeah, I'd like Darwin Núñez to start then. Am I allowed Darwin Núñez? Is he not getting a bonus week off? Or is he already had his little bonus party?
He started against. Well, he came on against Milan, so you can have him. Yeah.
Okay. Yes, I'd like to have Darwin Núñez, please. I think that in terms of the starting 11, Kiva Kelleher, sorry, I'm saying his first name wrong. Kelleher is as generous as I'm being in terms of letting the kids have a go, purely because I know that it's Kelleher's competition, so he absolutely gets to do it. But also, it's Man City, and it's quite important that if we do this, then we can have some degree of confidence kind of going forward in this competition. So I think that they'd be being brought on at points, but then not necessarily starting unless it's Kelleher.
Okay. Rock solid from the 3 of you.
I think the one thing is, whatever team we put out, it'll probably be stronger than theirs.
Yeah. To start.
They'll still have, I think they'll probably still have Gundogan, Haaland, De Bruyne, and Mahrez.
Mahrez for certain.
Yeah.
Mahrez
So
definitely
they'll have those 4, but it's very much fit another 6 outfield players around those 4 players, I think, isn't it?
When did Cancelo go out?
Cancelo went out in the quarters.
Okay, yeah. So they won't have Cancelo back then. Well, he'll be knocking round in the same way that the England players are knocking around for us as well. Yeah. So the Cancelo may be there, maybe around John Stones, maybe sort of about Diaz. And there's a lot of players he's not going to want to rush back. Ultimately, Guardiola. But I don't
think his England lads. I don't think the quarterfinal lads are playing any quarterfinal lads. I don't think.
You know what worries me about this fixture is it wouldn't surprise me if it's one of those where every sub makes us weaker and every sub makes them stronger.
That's possible.
And that therefore concerns you as a game sort of wears on, because it would be unpleasant to watch us be pegged back over a period of 30 minutes. I've no interest in being pegged back. I never like to be pegged back.
Yeah, it's such a weird game in that I can genuinely see how either team win 4-0.
Yeah.
Like, I could see us. You can just see Kevin De Bruyne putting the ball in the right area 3 times in the first 20 minutes, and Haaland scored 3 goals, and that's nothing to do. We've not done anything wrong. And in the same way, you can see the same at the other end of the pitch. It's just it could be a mad game of football.
All right, Thursday, mad game of football. Everything that you need before it. Further looking ahead on the Anfield Wrap. If you download the app, you can get absolutely everything around that. And then immediately after it as well, everything you need, audio, video, and writing. I will write on Thursday. I should hope so.
Can you still write? Are you still able to?
I chatted an email
like
this morning.
Like the first day of school when you go, I've done the wrong date at the top of the page. That's what you'll be doing.
I did an email this morning and my thoughts just did not line themselves up in a pleasant way. I mean, if you've read it.
Where you forget the year, Emilia.
Yeah.
You go back after Christmas and you were like,
oh my God, I forgot how to write when you go back out.
There's stuff in our fridge with 23 on, and I just sort of, it just feels like that, I thought the future would be cooler. Thank you very much indeed to Andy Heaton, to Phil Blundell, to Emilia Bona, to Jake Nolan. Ash O'Rourke's pulled the video together live in front of your very eyes. Phil just switched his phone off flight mode. You got a blast of it through your ears. What does he think he's doing? You see, I started off saying that, you've had your fun, you haven't had your fun. There's a lot more of it to come, because Phil Blundell has just promised you a thriller on Thursday night.